Beneath the waves off India's coast lies a kingdom lost for millennia. This is Dwarka, the legendary city of Lord Krishna, said to have vanished into the sea. We're about to journey into the depths where ancient myth and modern science collide. By the end, you will possess a complete picture of this sunken marvel, from its sacred origins to the stunning artifacts recovered from the seabed. Was Dwarka a magnificent metropolis, as described in epic poems, or does the physical evidence tell a different story? How could an entire city simply disappear beneath the ocean? What do you believe is the most compelling evidence of a lost civilization? Ancient texts paint a vivid portrait of Dwarka's glory. The Mahabharata, an epic of immense scale, describes it as a city of great beauty and prosperity, a fortified island kingdom built by Lord Krishna himself upon the ocean. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid, lined with magnificent palaces made of crystal and silver. Canopies of gold graced its buildings, and its gardens were always in bloom. This was no ordinary city. It was a divine metropolis, protected by massive walls and bustling with a contented populace. The scripture details its incredible wealth, mentioning golden idols and vast treasuries, a place where the very gods were said to walk among mortals. The narrative then takes a dramatic and sorrowful turn. Following a great war and the departure of Krishna from the mortal world, the epic tells of Dwarka's fate. The sea, which had once been its protective moat, rose up and swallowed the entire city. It is described as being consumed by the waves, vanishing from sight in a single cataclysmic event, leaving only a memory and a legend passed down through generations. This story is not confined to a single text. The Harivamsa, which expands on Krishna's life, and the Vishnu Purana, a foundational text of Hindu cosmology, both corroborate this tale of a magnificent city claimed by the ocean. They provide the powerful mythological bedrock, the very first spark of the mystery that would lie dormant for centuries, waiting for someone to search for proof beneath the waves. For centuries, the legend of Dwarka was just that, a beautiful story preserved in ancient texts. Then, in the late 1980s, something extraordinary happened. Archaeologists began to explore the waters off the coast of modern Gujarat, and the myth started to take physical form. What they found on the seabed was a series of stone structures, clearly man-made, scattered across the ocean floor. These were not random rocks. They were the foundations of walls, the outlines of fortifications, and the remnants of what appeared to be a large settlement, now lying under several meters of water. The very grid-like street pattern described in the Mahabharata seemed to be mirrored in the layout of these sunken ruins. The Archaeological Survey of India and the National Institute of Oceanography led these pioneering underwater excavations. Their work was meticulous and challenging, battling strong currents and limited visibility to carefully document and recover evidence. Over the decades, their efforts have revealed a stunning array of artifacts. From the depths, they have brought up stone anchors used by ancient mariners, pottery shards that hint at daily life, and even items of personal adornment. One of the most compelling finds was a stone block with the inscription, a tangible link to a written language and an organized society. The timeline of these discoveries is crucial. Initial surveys in the 1960s and 70s hinted at something significant, but it was the systematic excavations beginning in the 1980s that truly unveiled the scale of the submerged city. Each new diving season added another piece to the puzzle, from identifying a potential citadel area to mapping a network of structures that stretched for nearly a kilometer along the seabed. These are not the golden palaces of legend, of course. Time and the sea have claimed the precious metals and glittering crystals. What remains are the bones of the city, the stone foundations that the ocean could not dissolve. And in many ways, these silent, sturdy stones are more powerful than any myth. They are physical proof that a sophisticated, prosperous coastal civilization did indeed flourish here, and that it met a sudden, catastrophic end, just as the old stories have always claimed. These stone foundations reveal a city designed with remarkable foresight, lying on the seabed. The arrangement of massive stone blocks and the remnants of fortification walls tell a story of sophisticated urban planning. The layout is not haphazard. Instead, you can trace the clear lines of what were once wide streets, intersecting at right angles to form a grid pattern. This organized design aligns perfectly with the ancient descriptions of Dwarka's precise and orderly streets. It suggests a society that valued structure, commerce, and community movement. The sheer size and weight of the stone blocks point to a coordinated, large-scale construction effort, something only a powerful and prosperous kingdom could have undertaken. Among the ruins, archaeologists identified structures that appear to be strong protective walls, further evidence of a fortified city prepared to defend itself and its wealth. The presence of these walls, now slowly being claimed by marine life, reinforces the image of a significant and secure settlement. The location itself is a major clue to the city's purpose. Positioned at the confluence of the Gamadi River and the Arabian Sea, this was the perfect spot for a thriving port. The discovery of stone anchors, still resting where ancient mariners once dropped them, confirms that this was a hub of maritime activity. Imagine the bustling docks, with ships from distant lands tied to these very stones, loading and unloading goods, ideas, and cultures. This was not an isolated town. It was a major port city, a central node in a vast network of trade routes that connected the Indian subcontinent to the wider world. Its wealth likely flowed not just from the land, but from the sea, from the commerce that passed through its gates. The urban layout, the fortifications, and the strategic location all converge on a single, powerful conclusion. This was a planned metropolis, a center of power and commerce that perfectly matches the legendary stature of Krishna's Dwarka. The stones do not speak, but their silent, orderly arrangement on the ocean floor speaks volumes about the advanced civilization that placed them there with such intention. But the true heartbeat of the city is not found in its grand foundations. It is whispered through the smaller, more intimate objects recovered from the seabed. These artifacts, from pottery shards to personal ornaments, are the echoes of daily life in a vanished world. The most numerous finds are fragments of pottery, scattered across the site like a broken timeline. These are not mere pieces of clay. Their shapes, thickness, and the distinctive red and black finishes tell a sophisticated story of domestic routine and artistic skill. Archaeologists can identify storage jars that once held grain and water, cooking pots that sat over hearths, and elegant bowls and dishes used for serving food. This variety reveals a society with specialized craftspeople and a clear sense of aesthetic beauty in everyday objects. The very fact that this pottery bears similarities to types found at other ancient sites on land helps to anchor Dwarka in a specific historical period, linking it to a known cultural horizon. Then there are the beads, made from materials like terracotta, semi-precious stones, and even glass. These tiny artifacts speak volumes about personal adornment, status, and far-reaching connections. A simple terracotta bead might have been worn by a common citizen, while a meticulously crafted carnelian or agate bead would have denoted wealth and importance. The presence of such materials is particularly telling. Carnelian, for example, was not locally available in this region. Its presence implies a well-established trade network, where merchants brought precious stones from distant lands to the bustling markets of Dwarka. Can you picture a merchant or a noblewoman wearing a necklace of these vibrant beads, a small splash of color and status against their clothing? These were people with tastes, with social hierarchies, and with access to goods from across the ancient world. Further evidence of their technological capability comes from metal artifacts. Though the sea has corroded most, the remnants of copper and bronze tools have been identified. These were not weapons of war, but the practical instruments of a working society. Imagine the shipwrights using copper chisels to shape hulls, or carpenters employing saws and axes in their workshops. The ability to smelt and work metal was a cornerstone of their advancement, enabling them to build stronger ships, create better tools, and craft more durable goods. Each of these artifacts, from the humblest pottery fragment to the most intricate bead, is a direct message from the past. They tell us that Dwarka was not just a city of legend, but a living, breathing community of people who cooked meals, traded goods, cherished beauty, and mastered the technologies of their time. They transform the mysterious ruins on the seafloor from an archaeological site into a home. Yet these tangible clues from the ocean floor lead us to a pressing and complex question. When exactly did this city sink beneath the waves? Pinpointing the age of Dwarka has become a scientific puzzle, one where advanced technology meets ancient legend. To solve it, researchers have turned to two primary methods: thermoluminescence dating and carbon dating. Thermoluminescence works by measuring the trapped light energy inside objects like pottery shards. Every time a piece of pottery was fired in a kiln thousands of years ago, its internal clock was reset to zero. Buried under sediment on the seafloor, it began absorbing natural radiation from the environment. In the lab, scientists can carefully heat a tiny sample, causing it to release that stored energy as a faint glow of light. The intensity of that light directly corresponds to the amount of time that has passed since the pottery was last fired, giving a remarkably accurate date for its creation. Carbon dating, meanwhile, focuses on organic materials. If a piece of wood from a ship or a bone tool is found, scientists can analyze the remaining carbon-14, a radioactive isotope that decays at a steady, predictable rate after the organism dies. By measuring how much carbon-14 is left, they can calculate a date range for when that tree was cut down or that animal lived. These are not guesses. They are precise measurements of physical processes that have been ticking away for millennia. The dates emerging from these tests are both startling and contentious. Many of the artifacts pulled from the site point to a time frame around 3,500 to 3,000 years ago. This places the submerged city's peak in the late Harappan period, a time of great cultural transition in the region. But here is where science and scripture seem to diverge, creating a fierce debate. Traditional interpretations of the Mahabharata epic, based on astronomical calculations described within the text itself, suggest a much older date for the Kurukshetra war and Krishna's life, potentially placing the city's submergence as far back as 5,500 years or more. This gap of over 1,000 years is the heart of the controversy. One side argues the scientific evidence is clear and irrefutable. The other contends that the artifacts being dated might be from a later period of reconstruction or habitation on the same site, and that the original, legendary Dwarka of Krishna lies even deeper, buried under layers of sediment and time, still waiting to be found. So which timeline is correct? The answer may not be a simple either-or. Could the legend preserve the memory of an even older settlement, while the stone structures we see today represent its final, magnificent incarnation before the sea took it? The search for a definitive answer continues, driving each new expedition back into the murky waters. The ruins on the seabed are not just a testament to urban planning. They are the silent witnesses to an epic tragedy, one immortalized in India's greatest poem, the Mahabharata. To understand why Dwarka sank, we must first understand the role it played in the cataclysmic war that forms the heart of that story. This city was the personal kingdom of Lord Krishna, who served not as a warrior on the battlefield, but as the strategic and moral guide for the Pandava princes. From his palace in Dwarka, Krishna counseled, plotted, and set in motion the events that would lead to an 18-day war that reshaped the world. The city was his power base, a symbol of his divine authority, and a sanctuary away from the conflict that consumed the mainland. Its immense wealth and formidable defenses were a direct reflection of his status. The connection goes even deeper. Many of the warriors who fought in the Great War were said to be from Dwarka, its citizens and soldiers deeply entwined in the fate of the continent. The city was, in every sense, the anchor of Krishna's earthly mission, and that is precisely why its fate was so inextricably linked to his. The ancient texts are unequivocal about the sequence of events. With the war concluded and his purpose fulfilled, Krishna's time on earth was complete. The prophecies were clear. The moment he departed from the mortal world, the ocean would rise to reclaim his city. The sea that had been its protector and source of prosperity would become its executioner. This was not a random natural disaster in the old stories. It was a direct consequence of the divine presence being withdrawn from the world. The city, having lost its spiritual heart and reason for being, was destined to fall. So how does this profound mythological narrative intersect with the stones and pottery found underwater? The archaeological evidence of a sudden, catastrophic submergence provides a startling physical parallel to the legendary tale. The discovery of intact pottery assemblages and structures that appear to have been abandoned in place suggests a rapid event, not a slow decline. This does not prove that a god walked the earth, but it does suggest that the ancient story preserves a very real memory of a devastating geological event that destroyed a great city. The legend gives the disaster a divine cause, a meaning rooted in cosmic cycles. The archaeology gives us the physical evidence of the disaster itself. There are two different languages describing the same profound historical trauma. The submerged walls of Dwarka are therefore more than an archaeological site. They are the bridge where faith and fact meet, where a 3,000-year-old poem finds its echo in the silent stones beneath the sea. Science offers its own compelling narrative for the city's disappearance, one written in shifting sea levels and restless tectonic plates. The Arabian Sea coastline is a dynamic and geologically active zone. Evidence strongly suggests that the submergence of Dwarka was not a single, sudden event, but likely a combination of gradual environmental change punctuated by catastrophic moments. One of the most powerful forces at work was post-glacial sea level rise. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, vast amounts of water were locked up in global ice sheets. As the planet warmed, these sheets melted, and the oceans began a long, slow climb. This process continued for millennia, and by the time Dwarka was a thriving port, sea levels were still adjusting. The city, built right at the water's edge, would have been acutely vulnerable to even a small, sustained rise. A gradual encroachment of just a few centimeters per year could have eroded shorelines, flooded lower-lying districts, and made the harbor increasingly difficult to maintain over generations. But there is another, more violent suspect in this ancient mystery. The entire northwestern coast of India sits near a major tectonic boundary. The constant, grinding pressure between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate makes this region highly susceptible to earthquakes. A significant seismic event could have caused the land to suddenly subside, a process known as tectonic subsidence. Imagine the ground itself lurching downward during a powerful quake, permanently lowering the entire city by several meters in a matter of minutes. Such an event would have sent the ocean rushing in, not in a slow creep, but in a devastating surge that could drown a metropolis within hours. This theory is supported by the very layout of the ruins. The way the structures are submerged, their relative positions intact, hints at a rapid, single-event catastrophe. rather than a slow abandonment. Perhaps the most chilling scenario is a combination of both factors. A city already struggling with creeping sea levels could have been dealt a final, fatal blow by a massive earthquake and tsunami. The geological evidence does not disprove the legend. It simply provides the physical mechanisms for the catastrophe the ancient poets describe. The rising sea and the shaking earth became, in their telling, the ocean itself rising up to reclaim what was once given. The myth preserves the trauma, while science uncovers the terrifying natural forces that made it possible. The silent stones of Dwarka are not alone in their watery grave. All across our planet, other sunken cities whisper their own lost histories, creating a global tapestry of submerged civilizations. The most famous of these is, of course, Atlantis. Plato's legendary island kingdom shares a core narrative with Dwarka, a story of a powerful, advanced society punished by the gods and swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. Yet the comparison reveals a crucial difference. Atlantis exists purely in the realm of philosophical allegory, a story told to illustrate a point about hubris, with no physical evidence to confirm its existence. Dwarka, in stark contrast, has its foundations literally set in stone on the seabed, its story supported by both scripture and archaeology. This transforms it from a mere myth into a tangible historical mystery. Far to the east, off the coast of Japan, lies the enigmatic Yonaguni Monument, discovered in the 1980s. This massive, terraced underwater formation looks like a man-made complex of steps, platforms, and what some argue are carved pillars. The debate over Yonaguni is fierce. Mainstream geologists point to the region's unique sandstone, which can fracture into strikingly regular, geometric shapes through natural erosion. They see an astonishingly beautiful, but entirely natural rock formation. Alternative researchers, however, see the hand of a lost civilization, a Pacific counterpart to Dwarka, built over 10,000 years ago. Unlike Dwarka, where pottery, anchors, and tools clearly point to human habitation, Yonaguni offers no such smoking gun. It is a puzzle written in stone without any accompanying artifacts to translate its meaning. Then there is Pottery in Greece, submerged for over 5,000 years. It holds the title of the world's oldest known underwater city. Discovered in the 1960s, its layout is so perfectly preserved that archaeologists have mapped its streets, courtyards, and tombs with incredible clarity. Here, the parallels with Dwarka become much stronger. Both were thriving port cities with sophisticated urban planning. Both were hubs of maritime trade, and both were ultimately claimed by rising sea levels. Pottery's slow drowning provides a compelling model for what might have also happened to Dwarka, a gradual encroachment of the ocean over centuries that forced its inhabitants to abandon their homes. So what does this global perspective tell us? It suggests that the story of Dwarka is not an isolated incident, but part of a recurring pattern in human history. Our ancestors consistently built their greatest cities along the coastlines, drawn to the sea for food and trade. And when the climate shifted or the ground shook, these vibrant centers of civilization were the first to be lost. Dwarka stands apart because it bridges this gap so perfectly, its legend preserved in sacred text and its physical reality lying just offshore, waiting for us to listen to what its stones have to say. Uncovering a city lost beneath the waves demands more than simple curiosity. It requires the specialized discipline of marine archaeology, a field that blends the meticulous methods of land excavation with the extreme challenges of the deep. Every dive to the sunken ruins of Dwarka is a battle against the elements. Strong, unpredictable currents can sweep away tools and disorient even the most experienced divers. Visibility is often measured in mere centimeters, the water thick with suspended silt that turns the seabed into a murky twilight world. Working in such an environment is slow, methodical, and physically demanding. An archaeologist cannot simply brush away sand or take a quick measurement. Every action is deliberate, every movement complicated by the weight of the water and the limited supply of air. The pressure is not just physical, but scientific. How do you carefully excavate a fragile pottery shard when you can barely see your own hands? How do you map the precise layout of a massive stone wall when your tape measure floats away? To overcome these hurdles, researchers have turned to a suite of innovative technologies. One of the most crucial is side-scan sonar. Instead of relying on light, this system uses sound waves to paint a detailed picture of the seafloor. Towed behind a research vessel, it sends out acoustic pings that bounce off submerged objects. The returning echoes are then translated into a high-resolution image, revealing the outlines of walls, foundations, and other structures hidden beneath layers of sediment. This allows archaeologists to create a comprehensive map of the entire site before a single diver ever enters the water, guiding their excavations with remarkable precision. But the technology does not stop at mapping. To record their findings in situ, divers use underwater photogrammetry. This involves taking thousands of overlapping photographs of an artifact or structure from every possible angle. Powerful computer software then stitches these images together to create a perfectly scaled, three-dimensional digital model. This virtual record is invaluable. It allows researchers to study a stone block or an anchor in minute detail long after they have left the water, and it provides a permanent digital replica of the site as it was found, preserving it against the relentless erosion of the sea. Even the act of excavation has been refined. Instead of shovels, archaeologists use a device called an airlift. This is essentially an underwater vacuum cleaner, powered by a compressor on the surface. It gently sucks up sand and silt, allowing workers to carefully expose delicate artifacts without damaging them. Every scoop of sediment is sent to a mesh basket on the support boat, where it is meticulously sifted for tiny finds like beads or fish hooks that could easily be missed on the seabed. This marriage of human endurance and technological ingenuity is what makes the exploration of Dwarka possible. Each dive is a carefully choreographed ballet of science and survival, all in pursuit of whispers from a drowned world. The same waters that hide this city's foundations also lap at the shores of modern Dwarka, a place where the ancient legend is a living, breathing faith. For millions of pilgrims each year, this is not merely an archaeological site. It is one of the four holiest destinations in Hinduism, the Char Dham. To stand here is to stand at a spiritual crossroads where the physical and divine worlds feel intimately close. The city's modern identity is anchored by the magnificent Dwarkadish Temple, a towering structure that has withstood centuries of wind and wave. Its flag, depicting the sun and moon, flutters high above, a symbol of the timelessness of Krishna's kingdom. Inside, the air is thick with devotion, filled with the scent of flowers and the sound of chanting. The central deity, Lord Krishna, as the king of Dwarka, draws countless devotees who believe that by visiting this sacred ground, they can connect directly with his divine presence. This temple is the heart of the living city, a vibrant testament to a faith that has endured for millennia. But the true power of this place lies in the profound connection between the modern pilgrimage and the ancient story. When pilgrims take a boat ride out to the point where the Gamadi River meets the sea, they are not just sightseeing. They look down into the turquoise water, knowing that just below the surface lie the remnants of the original golden Dwarka. They perform rituals and offer prayers, their faith affirming that the submerged city is not lost, but simply waiting, a divine reality just beyond sight. This act bridges a gap of thousands of years, making the legend of the Mahabharata feel immediate and real. The pilgrimage is a reenactment of that eternal narrative, a journey to honor a kingdom that was and a kingdom that, in the hearts of the faithful, forever is. The stones and artifacts pulled from the sea present a powerful case, but they also open the door to a vital debate. Was this truly the legendary Dwarka of Krishna, or could it be something else entirely? Historians and archaeologists are deeply divided, and their competing theories force us to look more critically at the evidence. One prominent school of thought, often aligned with a more traditional or faith-based perspective, sees a direct and literal correlation. For them, the underwater city is the very one described in the Mahabharata. The grid-like street pattern matches the ancient descriptions. The strategic location as a major port fits perfectly with the city's role as a naval power. The evidence of a sudden, catastrophic submergence aligns with the legendary tale of the ocean rising to claim it. In this view, the archaeological discoveries are not just suggestive. They are a stunning confirmation of a history long preserved in sacred texts. The gap in dating between scripture and science is explained away as a misinterpretation of the epic's complex timeline, or as evidence that the artifacts we are finding are from a later phase of the city's long history. They argue we have simply not yet dug deep enough to find the original foundations from Krishna's time. On the other side of the debate are the scientific skeptics. They urge caution, pointing out that correlation is not causation. They acknowledge that the ruins are indeed those of a significant ancient port city, likely dating to the late Harappan period or early Iron Age. But they question the leap of connecting it directly to the specific mythological figure of Krishna. Their argument hinges on a key point: the complete absence of any inscribed evidence that names the city. While a stone block with an inscription was found, it does not mention Dwarka or Krishna. Without a clear, written declaration from its ancient inhabitants, the identification remains an interpretation, however compelling. These skeptics propose an alternative theory. Perhaps this sunken city was a major, yet otherwise unknown, port of the Indus Valley Civilization or its cultural successors. Over centuries, its dramatic demise could have become woven into local folklore. Later, as the legends of Krishna developed and spread, bards and poets may have adopted this powerful story of a sunken city and attached it to their divine hero, giving a tangible location to a spiritual narrative. This would explain why the archaeological dates do not align with the traditional timeline of Krishna's life. The city is real, but its connection to the god is a later literary and religious development. A third, more nuanced theory attempts to bridge these two extremes. It suggests that the site of Dwarka has been a sacred and strategically important location for millennia. There could have been multiple cities built on top of one another over thousands of years. The earliest settlement, the true Dwarka of legend, might lie buried deep beneath the current ruins and the seabed, its remains still undiscovered. The structures we see today could be a later reconstruction, a final magnificent incarnation of the city that still carried the old name and the powerful stories of its divine founder before it, too, was lost to the sea. This theory allows for the reality of both the ancient legend and the scientific evidence, placing them on a vast, layered timeline. So where does the truth lie? The debate itself is a testament to the site's profound power. It sits at the crossroads of faith and reason, inviting us to question how history is made, how stories are born, and whether a place can be both a physical ruin and a living legend at the very same time. The murky waters that once obscured Dwarka's secrets are now being parted by sound. Advanced sonar imaging acts like a powerful pair of ears for archaeologists, listening to the seabed and translating its echoes into a clear visual map. This technology has moved the exploration far beyond what any diver could see, revealing the staggering scale of the submerged city for the first time. Side-scan sonar is the workhorse of this underwater survey. A device called a towfish is pulled behind a research vessel. emitting fan-shaped pulses of sound that sweep across the ocean floor. Every stone block, every sunken wall, and even subtle changes in the sediment texture reflect these sound waves back to the sensor. The returning data is then processed to create a detailed, almost photographic, image of the ruins. It is like using a flashlight in a dark room, but instead of light, it uses acoustics to illuminate the landscape. These side scan images have been instrumental in confirming the city's organized grid plan, showing long, straight foundations running parallel to each other, exactly as the ancient texts describe. But the most revealing technology might be what lies beneath the surface layer. Sub-bottom profiling takes this acoustic investigation to a deeper level. This method uses lower frequency sound waves that can actually penetrate the seabed, slicing through layers of sand and silt to reveal what is buried below. Think of it as a medical ultrasound for the ocean floor. It can detect the foundations of structures that are completely invisible to the naked eye and even to standard sonar. This has been a game changer for understanding Dwarka's true extent. The surveys have shown that the visible ruins are just the tip of the iceberg. Sub-bottom profilers have mapped a network of structures and what appear to be ancient river channels buried under several meters of sediment, suggesting the city was far larger and more complex than the surface ruins imply. The composite picture these technologies create is nothing short of breathtaking. Detailed bathymetric maps now chart the underwater terrain with centimeter-level accuracy, showing the city's layout in remarkable detail. We can see the outlines of a massive fortified wall, the clear geometric patterns of city blocks, and the remains of a grand gateway that once welcomed ships from across the ancient world. This is no longer a collection of scattered stones. It is the ghost of a metropolis, its skeleton laid bare on the ocean floor. Every new sonar survey adds another piece to this incredible puzzle, pushing the boundaries of the known site and raising an even more profound question. If the city was this vast and sophisticated, what other wonders still lie hidden, waiting for the next pulse of sound to bring them back into the light? Among the most tantalizing discoveries from the seabed was a small, unassuming object that held the potential to speak. This was the Dwarka seal, a molded piece of clay or stone etched with mysterious symbols and a likely inscription. Unlike the scattered pottery or the grand stone walls, this artifact promised something more, a direct message from the city's inhabitants. Seals were the functional tools of the ancient world, used to stamp authority on documents, mark ownership of trade goods, or secure storage containers. Finding one here meant that Dwarka was not just a settlement. It was a place of bureaucracy, commerce, and formal record-keeping. The very presence of a seal indicates a structured society with a system of administration, where authority needed to be verified and property needed to be protected. It hints at a central power, perhaps a palace or a governing body, that regulated the life of the city. The symbols carved into its surface are the real enigma. They are not the familiar script of later Sanskrit. Instead, they bear a striking resemblance to the ancient Indus Valley script, the writing system used by the great cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro over 4,000 years ago. This visual similarity is what sends ripples through the historical community. Could it be that the people of Dwarka used a form of this much older language, a script that remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in archaeology? The seal's imagery often provides clues beyond the script itself. Many such seals feature pictograms, small carved images of animals, mythical beasts, or ritual objects. A common motif found on Indus Valley seals is a unicorn-like creature, a symbol whose meaning is lost to time. If the Dwarka seal carries a similar image, it could suggest a shared cultural or religious symbolism with that earlier civilization, a thread of belief stretching across centuries. Deciphering these markings, however, is a monumental challenge. The Indus Valley script has never been conclusively decoded, despite numerous attempts by linguists and computer scientists. With only a few hundred characters to work with and no bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone to provide a key, the language remains a silent echo. The inscription on the Dwarka seal, therefore, is a locked door. Does it record the name of a merchant, a title of a city official, or perhaps even the name of the city itself, the very word Dwarka, as its citizens knew it? We simply do not know. Each attempt at translation is an exercise in informed speculation, piecing together grammatical patterns and comparing symbol frequencies. This single, small object, therefore, embodies the entire mystery of the sunken city. It is concrete proof of a literate, organized society, yet its message remains just out of reach, a silent testament to a world whose voices the ocean has not yet surrendered. The mysterious seal from the sunken city points to a connection far older than the epic poems. Its script, so similar to the symbols of the Indus Valley, raises a profound possibility. Could Dwarka have been a final, magnificent outpost of that great civilization, a last bastion of its culture on the coast? The idea is not based on a single artifact alone. The architectural style of the underwater foundations shows a remarkable similarity to the urban planning that made the Indus cities famous. Just like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, the ruins of Dwarka reveal a carefully planned grid of streets, with buildings aligned to the cardinal directions and evidence of a sophisticated drainage system. This was not haphazard construction. It was the hallmark of a specific cultural blueprint, one that valued order, public health, and civic organization on a massive scale. The people of the Indus Valley did not just build houses. They built entire cities according to a master plan, and the evidence from the seabed suggests the builders of Dwarka operated from the same foundational principles. The artifacts tell a parallel story. The pottery recovered from the site, with its distinct red and black slips and its specific shapes for storage and serving, bears a striking resemblance to pottery types known from late Harappan sites further inland. These are not generic clay pots. Their form and finish are like a cultural fingerprint, suggesting the people who used them shared a common technological and aesthetic heritage with the Indus world. Even the stone anchors found at Dwarka find their counterparts in anchors discovered at other Harappan coastal sites like Lothal, a major port that traded with Mesopotamia. This implies a shared maritime technology, a standardized way of building and securing the ships that formed the lifeblood of their commerce. Imagine a trade network stretching from the great Indus cities, down the rivers, and out to the coast at Dwarka. From this westernmost harbor, ships would have carried timber, semi-precious stones, and exotic goods across the Arabian Sea. Dwarka would have been the gateway, the final port of call before the open ocean, a crucial link in a chain of commerce that connected the Indian subcontinent to the wider world. This theory offers an elegant solution to the dating controversy. If Dwarka was a late Harappan settlement, its peak around 3,500 years ago fits perfectly within the known timeline of that civilization's later phases. As the great inland cities of the Indus Valley declined, perhaps due to climate change or shifting river patterns, their populations may have migrated. Some scholars suggest they moved east, but others propose a significant movement towards the coast. Dwarka, with its prime location and established trade routes, could have been a natural destination, a place where Harappan culture and knowledge found a new home by the sea. In this light, the legendary submergence takes on a new layer of meaning. The city that sank was not just a mythical kingdom, but potentially the last great stronghold of a civilization that had already faded from the mainland. Its disappearance beneath the waves would have been the final, dramatic act in the long story of the Indus Valley people, a catastrophe so immense it burned itself into cultural memory. The legend of Krishna's divine city may have grown like a pearl around this very real grain of historical truth, a way to explain the loss of a place that was already ancient and revered. So the stones of Dwarka may be telling two stories at once, one written in epic poetry and the other in the practical language of urban planning and trade. They challenge us to see this site not as an isolated wonder, but as a potential bridge between two worlds, connecting the legendary past of the Mahabharata to the equally mysterious and very real civilization of the Indus Valley. The golden canopies and crystal towers of the epic poems stand in stark contrast to the silent, seaweed-draped stones on the seabed. This is the central tension of Dwarka, a place where magnificent myth meets a more muted, but no less compelling physical reality. The ancient texts describe a city of almost unimaginable splendor, where palaces reached for the clouds, built with silver and embedded with precious gems. They speak of a city so wealthy that gold was as common as stone, a divine metropolis that shone like a beacon. When we look at the archaeological evidence, we do not find silver or crystal. We find the sturdy foundations of well-built stone structures, the practical tools of fishermen and merchants, and the simple, beautiful pottery of everyday life. So where is the legendary wealth, the divine architecture? The answer may lie in the nature of time and the sea. Precious metals are among the first things to be looted by salvagers or reclaimed by the corrosive saltwater over millennia. A golden idol, described in a text, would have been a prime target for any who survived the city's fall, or it would have slowly dissolved into the ocean sediments, leaving no trace for modern divers to find. The grand palaces, if their upper levels were indeed made of more perishable materials like wood or brick, would have been utterly devoured by the waves and marine organisms, leaving only their stone foundations behind. Yet for all these discrepancies, the points of alignment are equally powerful. The Mahabharata emphasizes Dwarka's precise grid-like layout, and that is exactly what the Sonar maps reveal on the ocean floor. The texts describe it as a heavily fortified island kingdom, and the archaeology shows the clear remains of massive protective walls. It is consistently portrayed as a bustling port, and the seabed is littered with the stone anchors of 100 ships. The legend speaks of a sudden, catastrophic end, and the intact pottery assemblages and unlooted foundations strongly suggest a rapid submergence, not a slow abandonment. This forces us to ask a critical question. Are we looking at the wrong evidence? Perhaps the golden canopies were not literal, but a poetic metaphor for the city's immense prosperity and spiritual significance. The crystal walls could symbolize its perceived purity and divine connection. The epics were not written as archaeological field reports. They were composed as grand moral and spiritual narratives. Their goal was to convey the glory of a divine kingdom, not to provide a precise material inventory for future scientists. The real Dwarka may have been a prosperous and powerful port city, whose fame and eventual tragic fate were so immense that over centuries of storytelling, its description was elevated to the level of the miraculous. The stones confirm the city's existence and its catastrophic end, while the myth preserves its soul, its meaning, and its place in the human imagination. One gives us the skeleton, the other, the legend of its heartbeat. The discovery of Dwarka did more than just uncover a submerged city. It sent ripples through the very foundations of ancient Indian history, forcing a dramatic rewrite of long-held assumptions. For generations, the dominant historical narrative often portrayed early Indian civilization as primarily inward-looking, a landlocked culture focused on the Gangetic Plains. The grand epics were often relegated to the realm of pure mythology, beautiful stories with no basis in physical fact. The stones and anchors pulled from the Arabian Sea shattered that simplistic view. Here was undeniable proof of a sophisticated, outward-facing maritime power. The city's precise grid layout and massive fortifications demonstrated a level of urban planning and centralized authority that rivaled any contemporary civilization. Its strategic location and the sheer number of stone anchors confirmed that ancient India was not isolated. It was a hub of oceanic trade, its ships likely navigating the Arabian Sea to connect with Mesopotamia and beyond. This was not a simple village. It was a metropolis built by master engineers and seasoned sailors. The findings forced historians to look at the Mahabharata and other texts with new eyes. They were no longer just spiritual allegories. They were now seen as potential repositories of cultural memory, preserving the echoes of real cities, real kings, and real historical catastrophes. Dwarka's existence bridges the gap between the fading Indus Valley Civilization and the rising cultures of the Indian subcontinent, suggesting a continuity of technological and maritime knowledge that had been previously overlooked. It proves that the ancient Indians were not just philosophers and farmers, but also daring explorers and master city builders whose legacy was written not only in scripture, but in stone deep beneath the waves. The seabed off Dwarka is far from a silent graveyard. It remains an active archaeological frontier, its secrets still emerging one careful dive at a time. Ongoing excavations continue under the watch of the Archaeological Survey of India and the National Institute of Oceanography, but the work has evolved dramatically. Today's missions are characterized by international collaboration and a suite of technologies that were once the stuff of science fiction. Japanese and Italian research institutions have joined the effort, bringing advanced remote-operated vehicles and cutting-edge sediment analysis techniques to the project. These partnerships are crucial, pooling global expertise to tackle a puzzle of global significance. The primary goal of current research is no longer just to find more walls. It is to understand the city's complete timeline, from its first foundation to its final moments. This involves targeted excavations in deeper water and in areas previously deemed too challenging to explore. The hope is to find the cultural layers that predate the visible stone structures, searching for the original settlement that may align with the earliest legends. One of the most exciting prospects is the planned use of deep penetrating ground penetrating radar from surface vessels. This technology could map the entire subsurface layout of the site without moving a single stone, potentially revealing grand public buildings, temples, or even the fabled palace complex buried under millennia of silt. Every new season of diving holds the potential for a discovery that rewrites the narrative. The ultimate find would be an inscribed pillar or a sealed archive room, an object that clearly names the city and its rulers. Imagine a tablet that bears the name of Krishna, or a royal seal that connects this port directly to the kings mentioned in the epics. Such a discovery would be the key that finally unlocks the door, transforming a compelling theory into documented history. Beyond the grand inscriptions, researchers are meticulously sifting through the smallest finds. A single seed, perfectly preserved in anoxic clay, could reveal the city's agricultural practices. The bones of fish and animals can reconstruct their diet and economy. Each fragment of wood, carefully dated, can build a more precise chronology of the city's construction and destruction. The future of Dwarka lies not in a single spectacular revelation, but in the patient, painstaking accumulation of these tiny details. They are the individual pixels that, when assembled, will finally give us a high-resolution portrait of this lost kingdom. The mystery of Dwarka is not a closed book resting on the ocean floor. It is a scroll still being unrolled, its next chapter waiting to be read by the next pulse of sonar or the next diver's careful hand. Yet this physical city also exists as a profound spiritual idea. In Hindu philosophy, the rise and fall of Dwarka is far more than a historical event. It is a powerful allegory for the cosmic dance of creation and destruction, a concept known as Leela, or divine play. The city's emergence from the ocean at Krishna's command symbolizes the very manifestation of the universe from the formless divine. Its golden splendor represents a world at the peak of its spiritual harmony, a temporary paradise established by divine will, and its subsequent vanishing into the sea is not a tragedy, but a necessary dissolution. It illustrates the principle of Maya, the illusion that the material world is permanent and solid. Dwarka's splendor was real, but it was not everlasting. Its fate teaches that all things in the physical realm, no matter how magnificent, are transient. This cyclical nature of existence is central to Hindu thought. Just as the universe itself undergoes cycles of birth, expansion, and collapse over vast eons, so too do civilizations and kingdoms. Dwarka's story is a microcosm of this universal rhythm. Its destruction was not an act of random chaos, but a part of a divine order, a necessary conclusion to one chapter so that another could begin. The city's purpose was fulfilled with the end of Krishna's earthly role. Its continued existence would have been out of sync with the cosmic cycle, so its submergence becomes an act of graceful withdrawal, a return to the source, much like a wave rising from the ocean only to merge back into it. This philosophical lens transforms the sunken ruins from a scene of loss into a symbol of profound truth. The stones on the seabed become a meditation on impermanence. They ask us a quiet, personal question. If a city of gods could be reclaimed by the ocean, what does that say about our own attachments to the seemingly solid structures of our lives? The legend invites us to look beyond the physical to the eternal, suggesting that the true Dwarka was never just a place of stone and gold, but a state of divine alignment that, once served, could be gracefully released back into the cosmos from which it came. The fishermen who have plied these waters for generations do not need sonar to know the city is there. Their knowledge of Dwarka is not written on paper or carved in stone, but carried in the stories told on moonlit beaches and in the songs sung while mending nets. These oral traditions, passed from grandfather to grandson, form a living archive that exists parallel to the sacred texts and the scientific reports. One persistent local legend speaks of a grand conch shell, the sacred Shanka of Lord Krishna, which lies somewhere on the seabed. It is said that on certain quiet nights, when the sea is calm and the wind is just right, you can hear its faint, humming echo rising from the depths, a spiritual sonar calling to the faithful. The fishermen point to specific areas of the water, warning that nets should not be cast there, for they might snag on the spires of ancient temples or the rooftops of drowned palaces. This is not superstition to them. It is a practical geography of the sacred, a map of reverence drawn from countless seasons on the waves. Another tale, strikingly specific, describes the city's final moments not as a single surge of water, but as a series of 7 great waves, each larger than the last. This account offers a nuanced detail missing from the epic poem's cataclysmic description. It suggests a process, a terrifying escalation that would align remarkably well with a tsunami generated by an offshore earthquake. Where the Mahabharata presents a divine decree, the local memory seems to preserve the visceral, human experience of the disaster itself, the frantic attempts to escape an unstoppable force. These stories often focus not on kings and gods, but on the common people. There are folktales of a lost marketplace where the cries of vendors can still be heard beneath the waves, and of a princess who still wanders the shoreline, weeping for her sunken kingdom. This human scale focus provides a poignant counterpoint to the grand, theological narrative of the scriptures. The written texts tell us why the city fell according to cosmic law. The oral traditions remember what it felt like to lose a home. The greatest divergence lies in the timeline. While scholars debate dates spanning thousands of years, some local bards recite genealogies that claim their own families are direct descendants of the original inhabitants who fled the drowning city. If their oral histories are taken as a continuous thread, they often compress the timeline, placing the event within a more recent, tangible past. This does not necessarily mean they are wrong. It may mean that the story has been adapted and retold to remain relevant to each new generation, its emotional truth preserved even as its chronological placement shifts. The power of this living folklore is that it requires no carbon dating to be believed. It is validated by the unwavering conviction in the storyteller's eyes and the collective nod of the community that has safeguarded these memories for centuries. They are the keepers of Dwarka's ghost, a chorus of human voices that has never let the city truly sink into silence. These discoveries have ignited fierce debates far beyond the shoreline. Within academic circles, the interpretation of Dwarka's ruins is a battlefield of competing ideas, where every artifact becomes a piece of contested evidence. On one side are those who see the findings as a dramatic vindication of ancient texts. For them, the grid layout, the fortifications, and the submerged port are not just similarities. They are direct correlations that confirm the historical core of the Mahabharata. They argue that dismissing these parallels is a form of academic bias, a reluctance to accept that oral traditions can preserve historical truth for millennia. Yet their opponents raise a crucial point about scientific rigor. They warn of the trap of overinterpretation, where we see what we want to see in the evidence. A straight line of stones becomes a planned street. A pile of rubble becomes a palace foundation. Without a clear, inscribed name for the city, they insist the connection to Krishna remains an inspiring hypothesis, not a proven fact. This caution is not about dismissing the site's importance, but about protecting the meticulous standards of archaeology from being swayed by powerful narratives. Complicating this scholarly debate are the strong undercurrents of modern identity and nationalism. For some, proving Dwarka's literal truth is not just an academic exercise, it is a reclaiming of national pride and cultural heritage. It pushes back against a colonial-era history that often marginalized India's ancient accomplishments. In this view, the sunken city is tangible proof of a glorious, advanced past that deserves its place in world history textbooks. However, critics argue that when archaeology is leveraged for nationalist agendas, the pursuit of objective truth can suffer. The desire for a certain outcome can, even subconsciously, influence how evidence is presented and interpreted. The debate then becomes less about what the stones say and more about what we need them to say for our own time. The central challenge, the one that lies at the heart of all these controversies, is the fundamental difficulty of marrying mythology with hard evidence. Myth is not history. It is a complex tapestry woven from spiritual truths, moral lessons, and amplified memories of real events. To expect a one-to-one correspondence is to misunderstand the nature of both disciplines. The legend of Dwarka describes a city of gold that sank because a god departed. The archaeology shows a sophisticated port city that likely succumbed to rising seas and tectonic shifts. Are these two stories incompatible, or are they simply different languages describing the same profound catastrophe? One gives us the physical mechanism, the other gives the event its soul-stirring meaning for the people who lived through it. Perhaps the most heated arguments are not about the facts themselves, but about the stories we choose to build upon them. The silent stones on the seabed are more than just a city plan. They are a masterclass in ancient engineering, a testament to a civilization that understood how to tame both land and sea. Look closer at those foundations, and you begin to see the genius in their design. The grid of streets was not just for orderly movement. It was the backbone of a sophisticated water management system. Archaeologists have identified channels and conduits running alongside the streets, cleverly designed to channel rainwater and waste away from the living areas and out toward the sea. This was not a simple ditch. It was a planned, gravity-fed network that would have prevented flooding during the monsoon rains and ensured a level of public sanitation that was extraordinary for its time. Imagine the foresight required to incorporate such a system into the very blueprint of a city, ensuring its health and habitability from the ground up. This was an urban intelligence on par with the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. The harbor itself was an engineering marvel, the strategic placement of the city at the confluence of a river and the ocean was no accident. It was chosen for its natural protection from the open sea's fury, but the builders did not stop there. The discovery of massive stone structures, some forming a kind of protective wall or jetty, suggests they actively modified the coastline to create a calm, safe anchorage for their ships. This was an artificial breakwater, a man-made barrier designed to dissipate the energy of incoming waves. Within this sheltered basin, the stone anchors found scattered on the seabed indicate an organized docking area, a place where vessels from across the ancient world could load and unload their precious cargoes securely. The construction techniques themselves speak volumes. The sheer size and weight of the stone blocks used in the foundations point to a highly organized labor force and a deep understanding of logistics. How do they transport these multi-ton stones? And how did they place them with such precision on what was then a shoreline? The evidence suggests they employed advanced masonry skills, likely shaping the stones to interlock, creating stable platforms that could withstand the constant assault of the marine environment. They were building not just for the present, but for the centuries, using techniques that have allowed these foundations to endure while the world above them vanished. This was not the work of a simple coastal village. It was the signature of a powerful, centralized authority that could command resources, coordinate specialized labor, and execute a vision of urban living that was both practical and profound. The real treasure of Dwarka may not be gold, but the enduring intelligence etched into its sunken stones. The legend of Dwarka has surged from sacred texts and academic journals directly onto the silver screen. Indian cinema, with its love for epic spectacle, found a perfect subject in the story of Krishna's kingdom. Films have dramatized the city's golden splendor and its tragic submergence, using grand sets and visual effects to bring the myth to life for millions of viewers. These cinematic retellings do more than just entertain. They translate ancient scripture into a powerful visual language, making the story of Dwarka accessible and emotionally resonant for a modern audience. When you see the waves crashing over a magnificent set, the legend ceases to be an abstract tale and becomes a visceral, heartbreaking event. This dramatization has played a crucial role in shaping public imagination, creating a shared cultural image of what the lost city might have looked like in its final, glorious days. Beyond the big screen, the mystery has fueled a thriving niche in literature. From historical fiction novels that weave human stories into the ancient ruins to serious non-fiction accounts of the underwater excavations, books have allowed for a deeper, more personal exploration. A novel might follow a young artisan in the doomed city, making the historical catastrophe feel immediate and human. A non-fiction work delves into the scientific debates, giving readers the tools to understand the carbon dating controversies and the significance of a single stone anchor. This literary landscape caters to every type of curiosity, whether driven by faith, a love of adventure, or a desire for factual understanding. The reach of the story extends globally through documentaries produced by major networks. These films often frame the discovery as a real-world detective story, following archaeologists as they dive into the murky waters and analyze their finds in laboratories. The compelling contrast of sonar images of the seabed alongside animated recreations of the mythical city creates a powerful narrative tension. Is this the proof of a divine story, or is it evidence of a sophisticated ancient port? Documentaries present the evidence and let the audience wrestle with that tantalizing question, bringing the mystery of Dwarka into living rooms around the world. Even video games and graphic novels have begun to incorporate the sunken city, introducing its legend to a new, younger generation who experience its story through interactive exploration. This pervasive presence in media has fundamentally shaped why the ruins off the Gujarat coast captivate us so deeply. The city is no longer just an archaeological site. It is a cultural touchstone, a story that has been told and retold through every medium available to us. Each film, book, and documentary adds another layer to its legacy, ensuring that the lost city of Dwarka continues to capture our imagination, not just as a historical puzzle, but as a timeless legend reborn for every new age. The ocean floor holds its secrets close, guarded by shifting currents and limited visibility. For the divers who brave these waters, the first encounter with Dwarka is not through a sonar screen, but through their fingertips, brushing silt from a stone that has not felt a human touch for 3,000 years. One archaeologist described the moment of discovery as a profound silence, a weight that had nothing to do with water pressure. You are floating in a blue gloom, he recalled, and then your light catches the perfect right angle of a carved stone block. Nature does not make right angles. In that instant, the legend becomes solid, and you are no longer just a scientist. You are a visitor in a drowned world. The emotional impact is immediate and humbling. Another researcher spoke of the challenge of working in near-zero visibility, where you operate almost entirely by touch. You might be carefully mapping a section of wall, your hands tracing the outline of each massive stone, when your glove suddenly closes around a small, circular object. You bring it close to your mask, and there, resting in your palm, is a perfectly intact terracotta bead. In that moment, you are not just holding an artifact. You are holding a connection to a person, a life, a story that ended abruptly when the sea poured in. The cold data of carbon dating cannot capture the chill that runs down your spine. The physical demands are immense. Divers must constantly fight the powerful currents that sweep along the seabed, threatening to pull them away from their work or stir up clouds of sediment that blind them completely. One veteran of multiple expeditions likened it to working inside a living, breathing entity that is constantly trying to erase your progress. You spend 20 minutes securing a measuring tape, and a sudden surge of water undoes it all. It is a battle of patience against the timeless rhythm of the ocean itself. Yet, it is in these grueling conditions that the most human stories emerge. A young marine archaeologist shared her most vivid memory, not of a grand wall, but of a cluster of pottery shards. They were all from the same large storage jar, lying together as if the vessel had been sitting on a floor when it was shattered. She spent her dive meticulously photographing each fragment, and later, back on the research vessel, the team managed to digitally reassemble the pot. It was a common household item, but seeing its complete form again felt like a small act of resurrection, piecing together a single moment of domestic life frozen in time. These personal accounts transformed the site from an archaeological puzzle into a shared human experience. The researchers and divers become the temporary guardians of Dwarka's memory, their stories the bridge that carries the echo of a lost city from the silent seabed into our collective imagination. From mythological epic to underwater reality, the lost city of Dwarka stands as a profound bridge between worlds. We have journeyed from the pages of the Mahabharata, with its divine city of gold and crystal, to the silent stone foundations mapped by sonar on the seabed. We have seen artifacts of daily life, from pottery to personal beads, that whisper of a sophisticated, thriving port. The debate over its timeline continues, a fascinating clash between scientific dating and ancient astronomical calculations. Geological forces, whether rising seas or tectonic shifts, offer a natural explanation for the city's submergence, while the legend provides a soul-stirring meaning for the catastrophe. This is more than an archaeological site. It is a cultural touchstone where faith, history, and science converge, challenging our understanding of ancient India's maritime prowess and the enduring power of human story. The mystery remains open, a sunken kingdom that continues to reveal its secrets one careful dive at a time. What do you believe lies at the heart of this story? A divine legend confirmed or a historical city immortalized by poetry? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you were captivated by this journey into the depths, subscribe for more explorations into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries.